is inspired by actual events, names, locations, and certain details have been altered or omitted for storytelling or privacy purposes. The events depicted are not intended to be an exact representation, but rather a dramatized account, meant for entertainment, educational, and conversation. Rest your bones with a wicked old witch and her dog. Let me tell you a little story. Viewer discretion is advised.
Ryan Waller and Heather Kwan had been together for 8 months, so it's new love, and had recently moved in together in Phoenix, Arizona, where they rented an apartment with roommate Alicia. Ryan and Heather experienced a home invasion on Christmas Day 2006. The thieves were Richie Carter, who used to live in the apartment, and his father, Larry Carver. I wonder, had the locks been changed in between the tenants and not sure what that situation was? During the break-in, Richie Carver had shot Ryan twice in the head. After that, Carver shot Heather, and she was gone at the age of only 21. They then proceeded to help themselves to the couple's possessions, not knowing that Ryan had survived the attack. When the couple didn't turn up for Christmas dinner, his parents got worried, as folks do, and they went to his apartment. Knock on the door, called out, no answer. But through the window, they saw Heather's body on the couch. The police were called, but instead of going in right away, they waited for a search warrant. Now, if they could see Heather on the couch, wasn't that probable cause to enter the apartment? What else did they need to know? How on earth did those parents keep themselves from going through the window? They're stronger people than I. I might have bulldozed my way in and messed up the crime scene, but as you'll see, that might not have mattered. Remarkably, Ryan was still upright and wobbling around the apartment when police did arrive. Obvious wounds to his face. And here's one of the bizarre facts in the many bizarre facts of this case. Ryan and Heather's roommate, Alicia, arrived home during this waiting time. She went to her room directly and did not notice Heather in the living room. Same question y'all have. Why couldn't the law boys go in with Alicia? The police knocked again, and this time Alicia answered, and they finally entered the apartment. Ryan was in there, alive, but with a massive black eye and blood on his face. Suspicion went directly on him, and instead of being helped to an ambulance that was already there, y'all, the ambulance was already on site. But no, he was cuffed and taken to a police car. The police already thinking that this was a domestic dispute gone wrong. His parents saw Ryan being taken to the police car, so they probably thought he's okay. Ryan was held for 4 hours in a police cruiser and interrogated for another 2 hours at the station. So what's up with holding someone in a car? Is that really a thing? Please comment if you know. And also, if you know, if at any time the paramedics could have asked to look at Ryan, would the person in charge of medical been able to assess Ryan before they took him from the scene? Now, I'm not saying anything about people who already had their hands full managing Heather's situation. Just wondering if in some circumstance medical supersedes police, or if it can. Y'all share your knowledge, because this is how we learn stuff. After spending 4 hours in the back of a police car, Ryan was taken to the station around 5 a.m., where they started another interrogation. He was questioned by Paul Dalton, who was 39 at the time, and had worked with Phoenix police for about 15 years and was homicide detective for the past 6 years. Now, so he didn't come to us lacking experience. He was no raw rookie. Video shows someone coming into the room, takes some pictures of Ryan's injuries, and even tells him he will eventually be able to get some sleep. The lead detective, Dalton, tries to make small talk, asking if Ryan has seen cop shows or lawyer dramas. What's Ryan's response? He says, I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of peculiar because most of us know what we watch on TV. Now, let me take a quick side quest. At least, a few people had seen the injury. Did no one in the police department recognize how serious this is? Now, I'm going to show you a quick picture. If you are sensitive to physical injuries, look away for just a bit. What does that injury look like to y'all? Is that a good deal worse than a black eye? Does it look like maybe a skull fracture? And if y'all can see that red dot on the right side of his nose, that's an entry wound. Oof, shiversome. But Dalton had tunnel vision and had already determined that Ryan had been injured in a domestic situation and that Ryan was guilty in what happened to Heather. During this time in the interrogation room, Ryan was unable to answer basic questions and unable to track the conversation. He was able to say that Richie had shot Heather, and then he said her father was the shooter. Disorientation grows. He bizarrely blames their roommate Alicia for his eye wound. Was she even home at the time? Well, he's unraveled. He was confused and begging for sleep, which is the last thing you should happen between, all these injuries. And had he been Mirandized at this point? If so, is that good, informed consent? That's just my view. He was not handcuffed, but there was a cuff attached to the table with a welded link, and he put the cuff on himself. Not great, right? Not a sign of a man who's ready to get out of there. He was even told, "Get your feet off my chair." After a bit, Dalton asked to look closer at Ryan's face. The detective then closed his book, put down his pen, and left the room. EMS was finally called and Ryan taken to the hospital with a bullet in his head that had been there for at least 6 hours while in police custody. Now, what do y'all think? If Ryan had happened to confess during this time, he'd just be put in a cell and allowed to go to sleep? It wouldn't have been a good confession, but that wouldn't have mattered. He would have been put in a cell. He might have confessed just to go lay down. Now, at the hospital, we get to some of the truth. Ryan had indeed been shot in the face. The bullet had entered his left side of his face, causing brain swelling and lodging a bone splinter behind his left eye. Additional damage came from bone fragments in his brain. Some reports say he also had a broken jaw from being tackled during his arrest. But would someone in that condition need to be tackled? Again, that's just my view. A 35-day stay in the hospital couldn't heal Ryan. The bullet left him with physical and cognitive impairment. He lost some brain tissue and his left eye. For years afterwards, he had seizures. And ultimately, one of these seizures caused his death. He was only 27 years old. Following the event, Richie's father, Larry, went to California taking the murder weapon with him. Larry's wife, Cheryl, initially claimed that he confessed what he had done to her. What he had done, he confessed to her. However, this was withdrawn, protecting Larry from prosecution under the shield of spousal privilege. Now, that's a legal loophole that safeguards spouses from testifying against each other. Heather's family wasn't here for any of that. They lobbied for a change, and Heather's Law was born. It amended the marital privilege statute to compel a spouse to testify if they voluntarily provide police with information about the other spouse's involvement in a serious crime. If we need to look for a silver lining, there it is. But hold on to your hats, because that ain't it. The saga continues. There are conflicting accounts about when the attack actually occurred. Ryan's family and roommate testified that it happened on Christmas Day, not Christmas Eve the day before, as is claimed by the police. Even Heather's obituary in stone lists her date of death as December 25th, 06. There's also the suspicion that the police might have allegedly altered the timeline to divert attention away from their failure to provide timely attention and care to Ryan. So after a 4-year battle, the Waller family's $15 million claim against the Phoenix Police Department fell through just weeks before its day in court. The dismissal was brought about by a purported expert on the police account that hinged on a discrepancy of date. The argument minimized the severity of Ryan's treatment, giving statement that immediate medical intervention would not have helped. The damage was already done. The police had nothing to do with it. I guess we'll never know. Now, there's a whole lot more to this story and the aftermath. If y'all want to look up the Ryan Waller interview, YouTube has a bunch of videos, but fair warning, be prepared to be furious and heartbroken at the same time. Ryan, baby, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Let's pivot just a little bit and look at what else a bad interview can do. Here's some things I know. Police interrogation have no prescribed time limit. Ideally brief, done and dusted in 3 hours, callbacks as needed. The investigation's complexity and suspects' cooperation can dictate the actual time frame for this. However, this 3-hour guideline is not absolute, nor is it enforced. In some cases, the flexibility is a good thing, but today we're not looking at that. If in any way the information gained during the interview seems to be coerced, it becomes inadmissible. Now, pump the brakes before y'all think I'm cop bashing, because I assure you that is not the case at all. I've gotten help when I needed it, and I can't holler loud enough the praises of a good officer. They are worth twice their weight in gold, and thank y'all for all you do. But that's for the good ones. The other ones need to know we're watching, and we're a whole lot smarter than we used to be. This next incident begins on the evening of August 7th, 2018, when Thomas Perez Jr.'s father, whom he lived with, left the house with their dog to go get the mail. The dog Margot returned in a few minutes, but Perez Sr. did not. The next day, Perez Jr. called the police and reported him missing. The officers went by the house, and Jr. was hauled in for interrogation because the officers didn't believe he was acting right. Did you see my eyes roll? Because I know you heard them. From the very beginning, he was accused of unaliving his dad. At some point, the police brought Margot into the interrogation room so Perez could say goodbye. They threatened to euthanize her because she would have depression after having witnessed the thing that didn't happen. During the time Perez was in custody, the police get search warrants for his home and his electronics. Searching his home, where they allegedly found bloodstains, later proved to be a minor, unidentifiable stain. Now, who among us has gotten through life without a stain in the carpet? With 2 people and a dog in a house, stuff gonna happen. As part of the interview, officers drove him around talking smack, denying his pleas for his medication, while suggesting that he'd probably committed the crime and then just forgot. While on that drive, asshat number 1 asked, "Can you take us and show us where Daddy is?" Asshat number 2 added, "You're not going to the hospital because they're not going to help you." Ugh. The officers eventually returned to the station where he underwent, that's right, further questioning. The videos show an unmedicated Perez subjected to hours of questioning. He is visibly melting down. Hair pulling, attempted self-harm, near collapse, throwing up in a trash can, and they taunted him, claiming he'd be liable for a $1 million fine if he didn't give up the location of his father's body. The detectives then told him falsely, of course, that the father's body had been located and was now in the morgue with stab wounds. That broke him. He snapped, his mind shattered, and he falsely confessed that he had caused his father's death. Then he was left alone in the room where video captured him trying to hang himself with a shoelace. He was undone. Pressured into a false confession, check this out, 17 hours of questioning, them threatening to put his dog down, being told that his father was dead. The officers had done this with full awareness of his mental and physical state and his need for medication. By this time, he was experiencing medication withdrawals. Officers also fully aware that this was being recorded. They were not listening to me telling them the truth, Perez later told the LA Times reporters when trying to explain why he would falsely confess. Their continual attack on me came to the point where I no longer wanted to tolerate this. I felt I have to end this. Oh my goodness. Now, for his trouble, he got a 5150. That is a 72-hour psych hold. Perez was then Mirandized for the first time, yet he remained on his 3-day grippy sock vacation, falsely believing that both his father and his dog were dead. The dog Margot had been taken to the pound but was later tracked down and returned. Even after learning the truth, the damage was done. He had spent 3 days believing that his father and dog were dead. Supervising entities remained very tight-lipped on disciplinary actions against the interrogators. Perez Jr. wisely lawyered up and got an expert with 40 years' experience at suing the police, who called the officers' actions unprecedented. You think? I think that's the nicest thing he could have said. I use the word bullshit. A generalization of the attorney's statement went like this. Interrogation tactics forced a false confession, driving Thomas Perez Jr. to suicidal thoughts before they revealed the truth. The fabricated confession, the concealed truth, and the continued confinement during his suicidal crisis were shockingly callous. Yes, sir, I agree. Yes, sir, it was. My stars, we have to get a lawyer involved before he can even cross the street these days. But here is evidence of pure evil. By this time, at least one of the detectives in Fontana knew that Thomas Perez Sr. was alive and well. His daughter had spoken to police earlier in the evening while her brother was still in the interrogation room. She told them that the missing man was not missing at all, but had been at the Los Angeles International Airport waiting for a flight to come visit her in Oakland. All of this had come about from a missed communication between Junior and Senior. Basic investigation of a missing person starts with friends and family and then telling others if you find that missing person. If you want to know more about this interrogation and see the actual video, it's also on YouTube. Look up Thomas Perez Jr.'s interrogation. It's also going to be a little bit upsetting, just so you know. These cases bring to mind a study I read while I was in college. The Stanford Prison Experiment, if y'all are familiar, was conducted by Philip Zimbardo at Stanford University in 1971. A study that divided a group of 25 male volunteers who were paid for this. Not that it matters. They divided them into prisoners and guards in a simulated prison environment to examine the psychological effects of power and authority. The experiment was meant to last about 2 weeks. It was terminated early after only 6 days due to the escalation of abuse and distress suffered by the prisoners. The study demonstrated how quickly individuals could internalize the social roles and the destructive potential of power imbalance. Some could say that the experiment failed due to being called early, but I believe it was a success in that it proved very quickly what power and authority can do. Now, there's this thing called the Reed technique. It was introduced around 70 years ago and had been taught up until a few years back. It is a controversial, to say the least, interrogation method. It uses a step-by-step approach to draw out confessions, true or false don't matter, by direct accusation and construction of a story around a lie and persistent pressure. It screws with the suspect's psychology, guiding them with leading questions that lead nowhere but towards confession, and then they formalize it in writing. This tactic uses some investigation with bold-face confrontation. It is criticized for coercing false confessions, leading to its ban and raising some serious ethical concerns. Ultimately, coerced confessions are inadmissible in court. So a crooked investigator is rolling the dice on what the court will call coercion. I'm sorry, y'all, my husband makes noise like a toddler. In 2017, Wicklander, Zulawski, and Associates, one of the biggest consulting groups responsible for training law enforcement officers throughout the country, announced that it would no longer use the Reed technique, the leading interrogation method used by law enforcement throughout the country at the time. And it was okay. The Innocence Project reports that false confessions take place in 24% of approximately 289 convictions reversed because of DNA evidence. In light of these exoneration cases, in recent years, criminal justice experts have closely examined the Reed technique and found that its tactics rely overly on deception, coercion, and bold-face aggression and confrontation to secure the confessions. Wicklander and Luzowski and Associates expressed that the technique poses far too great a risk to continue using it as a training tool. So what? Some interrogators do the same thing but call it something different because that's what happened in these cases. Now, as some of y'all know, I'm epileptic, and I have to stay on a very strict schedule with my meds. Meds on time usually equals no issues. But if I'm interrogated and it goes past that time, one of y'all come get me because I am a quivering, drooling mess on the floor at the mercy of whoever's in charge. Now, I never planned to get myself into a situation like that, but these other two innocent persons didn't either. So, that's me for this week. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you next week.